So not long ago, I posted a video talking about why I am currently daily driving a Canon R8 in 2025. I explained that I did get it in late 2024, and there were a few reasons. A lot of it had to do with building out a 2-camera A-cam, B-cam set, and even more importantly, being able to move with the smaller footprint and a lighter load when I'm traveling for client projects. So one of the first things I explained is how much that I love just having the full frame sensor to be able to use in small areas just like this. I'm actually using the Canon R8 to film this right now. It allows me to maximize my space with the right lenses and actually be able to still create a nice composition and still have some separation from the subject to the background. But aside from just having a full frame sensor, I explained how I felt a lot of times just taking my Komodo to every client project was overkill. The budget definitely didn't call for it, and a lot of the work, especially when it was just A-roll, talking head interviews, it did not necessitate that. That would be more along the lines of some documentary work. But I did also explain some of the areas that I felt there was room for improvement in the Canon R8 was going to be the sensor, and more importantly, the dynamic range and just having more of a cinema camera look to it. So as I said, I bought the R8 knowing that was going to be my daily driver, what I would take around and not have to necessarily be so concerned with just being out in public with this camera, but also knowing that on a lot of professional projects, it would probably be a B cam compared to what I also wanted to get. Now, originally, what I was waiting for was going to be the R5 Mark II. The R5 Mark II came out and it was about $1,000 more expensive than I expected it to be. So I decided to try something different. Actually, to go back a bit, before the R8, before even the red Komodo, I was holding out and I really wanted the Canon R5. There are some specific use cases that I will go into later as to why I wanted it. But with, I think, a lot of the heating issues and everything else, I felt like I just wanted to go for the best camera I could get at the time, which happened to be the red Komodo. With that being said, there are a lot of things that come with owning and operating a cinema camera, whether it's how you have to rig it out, which can be a blessing and a curse, how much that you have to travel with, the time that it takes to set it up or to boot it up or to just transition in between things, having to worry about things like your process of dealing with your SDI, last in, first out, to just have to not worry about damaging anything, that I wanted to avoid and not have to put my brain through on every project. So knowing I wanted the R5 and then actually waiting for the R5 II to come out and seeing how expensive it was, what I realized for about the same price of that, I could get this Canon R8. And then I went and got myself an R5C. Keeping with the trends, I'm about 2 years behind on everything, but this was a camera that I was really going back and forth between this and the red Komodo. I was watching a lot of comparison videos to try to figure out what I wanted to do. I ended up going with the red Komodo, but I thought this is something that I wanted to try for a while to see if this could be my daily driver for my day-to-day client projects. I will say, and I mentioned this in the other video, I have a lot of reasons why I picked this camera specifically, but another reason why I went for more of a mirrorless hybrid camera was the quality of life and being able to travel. Like, I'll have to throw some B-roll in here. You guys have seen this video before. This is my everyday backpack, but I also went on a trip not too long ago to where I packed the R8, R5, and about 3 lenses and most of the necessary gear that I needed all in that one bag. And it made my life so much easier. And as I said before, I know Canon is kind of in a lot of people's minds going the way of the dinosaurs, but for anybody that has shot Canon, there's something about owning a 5 series camera. There's something aspirational about owning that. But more importantly for me, there were a few different content creators that were doing specific comparisons between the R5C and the R5 II. Granted, the R5 II can shoot C-Log2 and you're going to get a little bit better dynamic range. You're going to have a newer sensor, a newer processor. I've heard, and I'm sure it will be confirmed or not confirmed by the time this comes out, but there may be an update to where the R5 Mark II and the R1 get open gate. But beyond that, from what I've seen in a lot of videos and a lot of footage, there is a very, very small difference between the dynamic range on the R5C and then the R5 II, especially when you're shooting in RAW on the R5C. Now, I've not shot a lot in RAW yet on the R5C just because I've been doing a lot of talking head, but I do plan to put that to the test this summer, along with comparing the footage to my red Komodo. But I digress. After seeing a couple of videos, one specific specifically from Josh Satin and then a couple others, it made it clear to me that after the price drop of the R5C, there was going to be a lot more value in this camera than something compared to the R5 II. And as I said before, for the same price of the R5 II, I could try this and also have a B cam, which currently is my R8. Ideally, at some point, if I'm to stick with this, I will probably get something a little bit better than the R8, maybe an R6 Mark III, depending on what the features are by then. But to be able, for the same price of the R5 II, potentially have two cameras to use for either an A cam and a B cam for talking head or for coverage if it's an event, that makes all the difference in the world for me. Of course, everybody knows about the R5 and the R5 II in general as a photography camera. I think it's a 45 megapixel sensor, shoots great images. It's funny, my friend had to remind me, just because I'm so video centric, that I did have a photography camera that is great, and I'll probably start using it a little bit more, maybe do some content on that. But the camera certainly offers the value for the price just as a photography camera alone. But another reason why I wanted to purchase this was I have this thing where I like to master different things, and eventually I will want to have shot and have a pretty in-depth understanding of all of the different operating systems. I've done a little bit with Sony. All of my friends have Sony, so at some point I'll kind of get into that. I started on Canon. I then jumped to Panasonic GH3, GH4. So I have a general understanding on how Lumix cameras work. Like I said, I've shot with Blackmagic. They have some of the easiest and probably best user interfaces out there. And then I spent the last couple of years learning how to use a Red Komodo. But something I've never done before is actually shoot on a Canon cinema camera. So as an aside, a big part of this for me was getting a camera that had the Canon Cinema OS on there, so I could kind of learn how to operate that in case I ever use a C70, C80, C400, or anything else down the road. I won't be like a deer in the headlights learning how to operate the camera and its operating system. I will say, and I used to hear about this when this first came out, in the Cinema OS operating system, when working with video, the autofocus tends to be just a slight step behind the autofocus when working on the photography side. One of the things, I'm still perfecting this, but one of the things that I learned in a video was selecting the focus area. So for me, and you may see this in a client project or two that I put up in the B-roll, I never missed focus, but there were times where this wasn't grabbing focus as fast as I would like it to. One of the fixes that I came upon in one of the videos showed me that the difference in focus area may make a difference. So for me, I've went to whole area autofocus, and then I saw a feature that I have not used yet in the CVP video, to where you can actually use your control ring in the selectable focus area to cycle through the subjects that you want to focus on. So that I will give a try. But when I changed the focus area, that has definitely made the autofocus work a lot more like a traditional Canon camera for me. Of course, most of us know, and if you weren't aware, the Canon R5C does not shoot in C-Log 2, it only shoots in C-Log 3. But there is a workaround where if you are shooting in RAW, you can then in the post-processing get a C-Log 2 image out of it. Either way, I've noticed two things. One, I'm getting a much flatter image in this camera. And two, I feel like I'm getting much more dynamic range, especially compared to the R8, which is a mid-tier. This is a flagship, so that should be the case. But as someone who has now for the last 6 years either shot professionally on a Blackmagic or a Red, I feel like this is a very good middle ground for giving me a lot of the mirrorless hybrid features that I want, but still giving me a very flat, relatively high dynamic range cinematic image. But so far I have been very, very impressed, and I'm very happy with this camera. Even having, it's funny, as somebody that's always just shot on SD cards, I really didn't understand the beauty of CF Express. Like, they are, or can be, pretty expensive, but they've come down a lot in price. But the speeds, how quickly the files transfer, even having, I think this is also the first time that I've had a camera with dual card slots. So knowing that if I wanted to shoot one as the main footage and another as proxy, or to do relay recording, that is a great feature to have. Another thing I love is with Canon Cinema OS, how much I can reprogram every button. So I have pretty much every button set to a certain function that works for my workflow. I feel like I'm very, very happy with this so far. Another thing I want to try, I know we're going to get the best dynamic range when shooting in RAW. Having spent a lot of time shooting with the Red Komodo, even though I know that is 16-bit, I know that those 8K files have to be huge, but I am interested in shooting in 6K RAW on this. I know that will give me a crop, but I feel like that would give me a better one-to-one comparison of the image on this compared to the Red Komodo. And if I have the right lenses, I could potentially use my speed booster on here and still get something similar to full frame. So if for nothing else, no professional reasons, the camera nerd in me really wants to keep this and to explore and experiment with this camera to see what I can really do with it. I think I'm going to use this camera a lot, which is why I went with the cage. This is the cage from Small Rig. It works with the battery grip, which is very necessary. I don't know what it is. I just, for some reason, I think just because traditionally the big professional cameras have the larger body and footprint, I tend to put this battery grip on all my cameras. I had it on the RP, I have it on the R8 right now. Similar to the R8, the battery grip or some type of power option is absolutely necessary with this camera. I do have the latest firmware. I can confirm that with the LP6P, I think, batteries, you do get a lot more battery life, like, 30 to 50% more per battery. Unfortunately, I only have one of those, and then the other is the one that came with the R5C. So will need to get another one to put it into this battery grip to see. But with that being said, I shot something for a gym owner, and it was just a class. The class was about an hour. I might have started 10 minutes before, but I wasn't shooting the whole time. I was jumping between shooting in 24 frames per second and 120 frames per second. And that battery bar and the amount of time I had left was jumping back and forth, and I got really, really nervous. So by the last 20 minutes, I was being really conservative with what I was shooting. So I would say to anybody that in 2025 is considering getting an R5, R5C, R5 II, if you don't have a lot of those Canon batteries, and they need to be the originals in this one, unlike the RP or R8, get a lot of them. I only have 2. I'm definitely going to buy a bunch more before my next big project comes. But I think in another video, I'm also going to test rigging this camera out. I've already bought a D-tap to USB-C adapter because almost any USB power source that offers power delivery will power this camera. Typically, if I'm doing anything that's a sit-down talking head, I'm going to run external power because I'm just not taking the chance. But there is one knock on this camera. It's not the autofocus. It's not the dynamic range, it's not the image, it is gonna be the battery life. But if you ever work with a cinema camera, you already know. It's just something that you have to deal with. You rig it out, you figure out your power solution, and you go forward. With that being said, this battery grip and 2 batteries is not gonna be enough for anything longer than an hour. I mean, you could probably get a lot longer than an hour, but if money and a client job is on the line, you don't want to risk it. Outside of the battery power, if there was one thing I would change about this camera, it would be the HDMI port.
Get that weak shit out of here.
Thus far, for everything else that I have, time code, remote triggering, the way this is built, the way I can rig this up, I don't really have any complaints with this camera. I've only shot a few projects on it so far, but the footage that I have is pretty promising. I'm definitely happy to put it through its paces. Having something that not only shoots 4K with great autofocus, but 6 and 8K as well. I'm also looking forward to doing a comparison between what the 4K footage looks like and pushing that image compared to the 8K MP4 file, which is going to be a lot smaller, and seeing what that compression looks like and how much I can push that in post. But those are thoughts and ideas for another video. If you guys have any thoughts, questions, anything I should try, anything I should be aware of, please let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you all in the next video.